Why exactly men make excuses for crazy feminists? Hey, it's Prince of Queens, and I came across a few obnoxious feminists in the wild on my Facebook timeline over the past few days, reminding me yet again that the culture war between the feminists and, well, everybody else isn't over by a long shot, and that they're just regrouping in whatever safe space that they can find, which they hope is everywhere in their social surroundings. You see, feminists are inherently weak people that only have any power as a result of successfully manipulating either the rich and powerful people closest to them or the masses by way of selective histrionics or downright falsehoods, as Spacepan has described it. Now, day to day, for the most part, feminists can get away with telling only slight dishonesties, pushing well-intentioned, hardworking, honest people further and further away from the truth, so that they can hopefully cash in on the people they've manipulated in some form or another eventually. However, eventually, they'll always take it a step too far, because there can be no feminism without the insistence that women are owed something. And thus, when somebody can make a case that they shouldn't have to put up with the feminist that is trying to get something from them, however small, the feminists will always flip the hell out and show their true colors. It's just the nature of the blue-haired beast. It's not dissimilar to that crazy homeless lady that always begs for money outside of McDonald's or something. Each time you see her, you wonder why they let her sit there all day, and why they even let her buy McDoubles and McChickens when she has enough money, as she smells and she is completely unpleasant. Finally, one day you witness what happens when she crosses some boundary or another, and the cops actually end up coming in and removing her. She screams and refuses to cooperate in any way, and they have to drag her limp, smelly, 300-pound body out of the McDonald's. So you have to ask yourself, if I worked at that McDonald's, wouldn't I just let her beg for the change and buy the food too? The same goes for feminists and the way that most men treat these women. But I'm here today not just to explain why most men continue to let these spoiled wastes of human vacuum suck all of the human resources they can into their sweaty hands, seemingly putting it all right into their gigantic bellies. Rather, I want to explain why exactly I don't let them get away with it on my watch. You see, I might have sympathy for a mentally ill, obese woman who can only feed herself with spare change she gathers in front of a McDonald's, but I have absolutely zero sympathy for the feminists I encounter on the internet these days. One of whom through a prolonged tantrum of over 24 hours in which she bragged about sharing my comments with her friends. And she ended up allegedly being a young lawyer who is honestly quite good looking, at least in her photos. Honestly, I didn't let that psycho give me any BS. But of course, many or most people seem to make endless excuses for these types of feminists, even if they are allegedly competent college graduates that shouldn't need anybody's protection. We've all seen it happen more times than we can count. Somebody makes a comment on Facebook under an article posted by a woman about Aziz Ansari. For one small example, let's say that the article is questioning whether or not coming after Aziz Ansari was a good idea. And some guy says, "You know, it really seems like this Me Too campaign has taken on a life of its own, and I don't think anybody in any industry is safe anymore." Whoa, Mr. White Dude, that's not an appropriate thing to share on a Survivor's wall. Well, maybe it is. I'm pretty good friends with Kristen, and I imagine she's sharing it because she felt Aziz was being targeted unfairly by opportunistic media. Look, bro, just shut up and keep it in your pants. Nobody asked you. Whoa, quit being a jerk and settle down. You're the one commenting on my comment. At least I was staying on topic. Oh, now you want to silence me too? This is precisely what the Time's Up campaign is aiming to address. Misogyny like yours. I'm not your little sister. You do not get to speak to me like a child, you piece of human excrement. Why don't you go back to trolling Reddit, alright? And then, of course, a woman or two tries to mediate the conflict by way of giving the feminists far too much leeway and sympathizing with her way more than she deserves, hoping to reason with the unreasonable, and then eventually 2 dudes show up to white knight like clockwork. Whoa, man, you really need to learn some manners. This isn't the 1950s. Can you imagine what it must have been like to have been told your entire life that boys will be boys and that you should never complain about their sexual harassment? Yeah, Ellen, it's really sad to me the way that you're speaking to her. It makes us all look bad. Sarah, I'm really sorry that you have to deal with guys like this. Now, I think I can understand why women so often sort of put up with other women when other women are being somewhat insane, and it seemingly has to do with weird unspoken female rules of female-on-female diplomacy, and the hope that their friends will treat them in such a way if they ever flip out and start embarrassing themselves. I don't know. Men have similar unspoken rules. And speaking of men, I'm more concerned with talking about men regarding how men react to crazy feminist women who are flipping out. Most men just keep quiet. They look at these interactions, maybe reading every single comment as if it is super fascinating, because it probably is often until you've seen it all, but they'll never say a word out of fear of getting involved. However, quite often, they will white knight and side with the women unconditionally, which we've all seen before. But here's the thing. I don't just think that they are doing it to score feminist brownie points so that they can look good in the eyes of the cute pink-haired girls, or so that their feminist girlfriend will hopefully put out that night. No, I think that a lot of them have legitimately convinced themselves that women actually need their help in these types of conflicts. Not just because they are helpless, fragile victims that can't argue without strength of numbers from men, but because they don't believe that women are capable of anything besides this type of petty, irrational behavior. So they totally enable it. Or maybe they even think it's good when women flip out randomly. I don't know, maybe it reminds them of their crazy mother and sisters or something. I don't know. I mean, seriously, these guys might as well be saying, "Leave her alone, man. She's obviously on her period." It's practically that bad. Finally, there's a third type of way that guys tend to react to these feminists, which is how I do it, and that is to meet them on an even playing field and just go ahead and wear them out, if I have time. If they want to argue logically, we'll argue logically. If they want to argue illogically, I'll point that out briefly with a bit of sardonic wit, implying that I expect better from, well, basically anybody. If they want to insult me, I'll insult them back in whichever ways I can get away with in whatever arena we are having the argument in. You see, I can behave this way because I respect women. I respect them not unconditionally, but potentially to be my intellectual equal. Not because I have issues with women, but because the women in my early life were all extremely intelligent and capable, and that was how they raised me to treat women ideally. Even though they didn't always stick to their own rules, but whatever. Part of not being sexist absolutely has to be about respecting people's capabilities. People say that there's no bigotry worse than the soft bigotry of low expectations, and thus, this obviously applies to feminism's infantilizing of women as well. Honestly, I can't believe I am even saying this yet again in yet another way, because it seems so obvious at this point. Feminism really has spent the past 50 years at least convincing everybody that the way to create equality between the sexes and undo gender stereotypes is to play into the exact same stereotypes and give women vaginal head starts so that they can reach the finish line first. And then people wonder why the women who were given head starts since birth are morbidly obese and can't even make it to the finish line. That's all I have to say for this video. If you enjoyed it, I hope you'll consider donating to me on PayPal or Patreon. Links are in the description.